Hey, what's up guys? Today, I'll show you a horror thriller film, Hush. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins in a secluded forest where a deaf and mute writer named Maddie lives alone in her large house. She is cooking dinner at her house and is following an online recipe for roast lamb with a side of vegetables and rice, but she is struggling with it. A message from her neighbor Sarah pops up on her laptop asking to stop by her house. She sees Sarah walk up the driveway carrying the hardcover book she borrowed from Maddie. It's actually Maddie's best-selling book, and she excitedly tells Maddie that she had finished it and she loved the story. Sarah knows a little sign language and she signs to Maddie while talking. She asks her friend how she's able to come up with such compelling stories, and Maddie explains that she hears this voice in her head. Sarah wonders if the voice sounds like a child since Maddie lost her hearing and speech after getting sick with bacterial meningitis when she was 13. But Maddie tells her that the voice actually sounds like her mother. The fire alarm in Maddie's kitchen suddenly goes off. The two women hurriedly go inside and Maddie diffuses the alarm. Apparently, she had left the lamb in the oven too long, and now it's burning. Sarah invites Maddie to her house for dinner instead, but Maddie declines because she has an upcoming deadline. So Sarah says goodbye to her and walks to her house as night falls. A few moments later, Maddie receives a text from her ex telling her that she and her hormones are still stuck in his mind. Maddie settles in for a quiet night at home, working on her next book. But she is stumped by the ending, and her creative juices are not flowing at all. So Maddie decides to call her ex twice, but she ends the call once the phone starts ringing. Her ex immediately calls her back, but she is not ready for a conversation, so she shuts off her laptop. She starts cleaning up in the kitchen and does not notice that Sarah is banging on her glass door. She is bloody and crying for help. And a few seconds later, a masked man shoots her in the back with an arrow. He then proceeds to stab her, and he drags her dead body away. However, Maddie remains blissfully unaware of what is going on in her patio. She finishes cleaning the kitchen and returns to her spot in the living room. The masked man stealthily enters her house and comes up behind her, mystified as to why she hasn't noticed him yet. Maddie's sister suddenly video calls her, and the masked man steps to the side, so he won't be caught. Maddie shares with her sister about her writing frustrations and her hormone-rich ex-boyfriend. The sister is concerned that Maddie has been isolating herself ever since she moved from the city to the woods after her first novel became a success. The sister also notices that something moving behind Maddie, but Maddie tells her that it's probably just her cat. In reality, it is the masked man grabbing her phone from the counter. After their call, Maddie grabs the cat's food bowl and shakes it to call the cat to her, but it's nowhere to be found. She is puzzled, but just chalks it up to the cat's moodiness. She opens her laptop again and receives a message from her phone. It's the masked man sending Maddie several pictures of her walking around the house. A chill runs down her spine and she turns around and sees that her front door is ajar. She slowly walks to it and discovers that the masked man is standing on her front porch. Maddie runs and closes the door before he can enter the house, and she continues to close the other glass doors too. The masked man circles the perimeter trying to find a way in, but finds the switch box instead. So he turns off the electricity in Maddie's house, preventing her from calling the police. It sinks in for Maddie that she is alone, and the masked man has trapped her. He then pulls out a serrated hunting knife and her window pane. He then goes to Maddie's car and punctures her tires with the same knife. Maddie reaches into her bag for a tube of lipstick and scrawls a message on her glass door. She is promising the masked man that if he leaves her alone, she won't tell anyone about him. And since she never saw his face, she wouldn't be able to incriminate him anyway. She also bluffs by telling him that her boyfriend is coming home soon. However, the masked man reads the message and then slowly removes his white mask. He has a pale face and cold eyes that are now taunting Maddie. It turns out he had come prepared with his mask, gloves, crossbow, and hunting knife. He is doing this for the thrill of the kill, and he's found the perfect prey. So he's not walking away. He speaks for the first time that evening and asks Maddie if she can read his lips. She slowly nods. He tells her that she knows she's lying about her boyfriend coming home soon because he heard her conversation with her sister, and he knows that she's all alone. He also says that he can kill her anytime he wants, but he won't since he wants to make this game fun. The masked man then walks off into the darkness. Maddie won't give up without a fight. She grabs a knife and a hammer from her kitchen rack, and she locks herself in her bedroom. She then hears a banging on her window and realizes that it's the masked man using the dead Sarah's wrist to knock on her window. Stunned by her friend's grisly death, Maddie retreats into the living room and cries. But she quickly realizes that Sarah's phone is tucked inside her jeans pocket, and she has to find a way to get it. She gets her car keys from her bag and sets off the alarm. This distracts the masked man, and she tries to exit through her window to get to Sarah's corpse. The masked man smashes her car window and shuts off the alarm. Then he catches her leaning out the bedroom window. She slams the window on his hands as he tries to pry it open. Eventually, he gives up and tends to his injury. However, Maddie wasn't able to get Sarah's phone, and it's now in his possession. He also yanks Sarah's earring and shows it to Maddie. She slips out of the front door and hides underneath her porch. The masked man paces above while looking for her, and he decides to go to the other side of the house. Maddie makes a run for it, but after a few meters, he sees her and fires an arrow at her. She turns and runs back to her house just in time for another arrow to miss her and embed itself on the front door. Unperturbed, Maddie opens a second-story window and steps into the roof. She tosses a flashing light into the woods to distract the masked man. She then walks to the other side of the roof and starts climbing down a drain pipe, but the masked man sees her and shoots her in the leg. Maddie winces in pain and almost loses her footing. She quickly goes back to the roof, and the masked man misses her when he fires his second shot. Maddie then removes the arrow from her leg and waits for him to shimmy up the drain pipe. She grabs his crossbow and tries to load the arrow, but to no success. So she just takes it with her and goes back inside her house. Maddie locks the window just in time before the masked man reaches it. She limps away and treats her wound by tying a piece of cloth to stem the bleeding. She then looks at the crossbow and notices that there are notches scratched on it, most likely how the masked man kept count of his kills. As the masked man watches her from the window, Maddie struggles to load the crossbow. John, Sarah's boyfriend, comes to Maddie's house to look for Sarah. The masked man pretends to be a police officer responding to a 911 call in the house. He tells John that he's a novice cop and that when he arrived at the house, someone knocked him out and stole his things. The masked man borrows John's phone, supposedly to call the station for backup, and pockets it afterward. John asks for his phone back, and as the masked man gets the phone from his pocket, Sarah's earring falls out. Upon seeing the earring, John becomes suspicious of the masked man and starts asking him questions. He mentions that he remembers Maddie kept a spare key in a planter below the porch. While the masked man looks for the planter, John grabs a large rock and hides it behind his back. Maddie finally sees John outside and bangs on the door to get his attention. However, this only distracts him and gives the masked man an opportunity to stab him in the neck with a knife. Blood gushes out of John's wound and he drops to his knees in shock. The masked man rallies, says that he wasn't sure if he would take John in a fight, so it's a good thing that Maddie distracted him. John feigns and then catches the masked man off guard with a sudden attack. He keeps him in a chokehold and shouts for Maddie to run. She almost runs out the back door, but realizes that she can never outrun the masked man with her injured leg. So Maddie sits on the floor, and the voice in her head calmly goes through her options. She can't load the crossbow, and even if she did, she'd have to make an unlikely perfect shot to take the masked man down. If she tries to get the electricity running again, he will probably catch her and kill her. And if she hides, she will bleed to death from her injury. Already, she is dizzy and her vision is blurry, so she needs to make a move soon. This leaves Maddie with only one choice: face the masked man and kill him. Outside, John dies, and the masked man steals his cigarettes and a crowbar from the back of Maddie's car. Her cat comes up to him, and he glibly tells it that he'll nail its body to Maddie's front door so as to further scare her. Suddenly, an arrow comes flying and hits the masked man in the shoulder. It is shot by Maddie, who's on the front porch. With his Achilles heel spared, he feels lucky and runs after her, and she manages to get back inside the house. But she drops the arrow by the door. She reaches out for it, and the masked man slams the door on her wrist and fractures it. Maddie soundlessly howls in pain, but she manages to yank her hand back inside and locks the door. The masked man tells her that he's coming in. Maddie bravely stands up and scrawls a message on the glass door with her blood. She calls him a coward and taunts him to make good on his promise. This riles the masked man up, and he gets the crowbar and starts smashing the glass door with it. Maddie spends a few seconds of her precious time writing a message on her laptop for her family. She also adds a description of the masked man to help the authorities find him in case she dies. After finishing her message, she runs to her bathroom with the kitchen knife in her hand. The masked man finally enters the house and creeps up behind her. Maddie feels his breath on the back of her neck and swivels right when he is about to slice her with his knife. She manages to stab him and flees to the kitchen. With not too much space to hide, Maddie pretends to pass out and then sprays the masked man's eyes with insecticide when he gets near. She then triggers the smoke alarm again to distract him with the flashing lights and booming sound. The masked man lands a few blows and gets her in a chokehold. Maddie's face turns white and she reaches for a corkscrew, lying near her on the floor. She stabs the masked man's neck with it and his lifeless body slumps on top of her. Maddie then dials 911 and gasps for air. The movie ends with Maddie walking out to her front porch. The smoke alarm is still blaring inside the house. She sits down and her cat comes up to her. She pets it as the flashing lights of the oncoming police car come closer. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.